Good afternoon and welcome. This October 19th, 2021 meeting of the Lake Oswego City Council is now called to order. Ms. Linder, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Buck,
Here.
Councilors Rapp,
Here.
Mbu,
Here.
Mans,
Here.
Wynn,
Here.
Wendland,
Here.
and Burdick. Here.
Thank you. And now everyone, will you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First item on the agenda this evening is public comment. In addition to the public comments that we will receive, we've received many written communications prior to this meeting. We appreciate those and have read them thoroughly. Just to note, this is a hybrid meeting. We do have presenters and members of the public who will be joining us via the Zoom. Okay, so first up in public comment is Mr. Jeff Goodman. Come forward. Everyone in public comment will have three minutes.
30 seconds? Did I hear 3 seconds? 30. Oh, 30, okay. Just a protocol, is it mask on or mask off?
Mask on.
Mask on, okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Buck, members of the council. My name is Jeff Goodman. I reside at 4088 Orchard Way, here in a city that we all care deeply for. Over the last 15 years or so, I've spent a lot of time thinking about the infrastructure of the city. This will come as no shock to any of you, and also as to how to pay for it. And recently I thought it might be helpful, not only for myself, but for others, to put together a retrospective, and hence the material that you have in front of you. Infrastructure of the city, looking back and looking forward. I've made copies, so all 10 of you up here. I've also distributed a copy to Erica Rooney, Megan Phelan, and to Anthony Hooper. And when I get done and I get home, I will forward an email or an electronic version to our city recorder so that you can have that available if you so wish. The reason for doing this is my belief, my very firm belief, that if you don't know where you've been, then any old way going forward will do. And it's my hope that this document that I've prepared will assist you as you have the dialogue among yourselves and the dialogue with the greater members of the community of which we are a part. And for that, I thank you for your work. I thank you for this opportunity, and be well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Okay, next, Mr. Jason Murray. Welcome. Please come. Thank you. Good afternoon. Please start whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Joe. Thank you, council members, for making the time and having this open forum. Just wanted to come here today to express my thoughts around support for the development of Rassekh Park, and in particular, the inclusion of skateboarding in the development and design and planning of the park. I know there's been a lot of consideration and investment and time put forth by the Parks and Planning Committee, and trying to figure out what the community needs, wants, what the budget allows, what the space allows. Just based on conversation and my activity within the skateboarding community here in Lake Oswego and the greater Portland area, I know there's a big need for it here in our city. We're one of the only, we actually are probably one of the only cities in the greater Portland metro area that doesn't have a civic sort of municipal skate park for its citizens. And so as you think about the design of the park, I know that it's been in the master plan for 25 years, specifically for activity, primarily sports. I'd ask that you consider skateboarding to be secondary to its primary use. I know that there's some other considerations that are on the table for pickleball and basketball and play structures. I personally feel like the city has a lot of those amenities elsewhere in other parks, and we have 0 skate parks. So as a father of 2 young children who love to skateboard, love the independence, love the creativity of it, are not team sports players, It's an outlet that gives them confidence and independence, and allows them a place to safely practice their sort of passion, away from traffic, away from the parking structure downtown, away from Millennium Plaza. But I often have to drive pretty far, about 4 to 5 times a week, to Tigard or Tualatin or Portland or St. John's or anywhere outside of our city limits to go help them recreate. So yeah, just hoping that you guys can consider that as you move forward. Also happy to offer expertise, insights, time, if there's other community organization that you need, or expertise within the design phase. I'm happy to help spearhead that, and just lend my experience. So, thank you.
One moment, Councilor Mance has a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming up today. This has been a very interesting time because we took down our skate park in order to put up our maintenance center, which was sorely needed.
Mm-hmm.
But as you pointed out, there is no skate park in Lake Oswego. I happen to live in a neighborhood where there happens to be a lot of skateboarders, probably because Helen Ann Street has a nice long strip where people can skateboard. I grew up in a time where people were skateboarding. I tried it myself. It didn't work so well. Too many bruised knees. But I do appreciate the camaraderie, the way that it brings people together and keeps them together. There's a lot of, and I won't go on for too much longer, there's just terrible things said about skateboarders that are not necessarily true. And I cannot thank you enough for coming up here and reminding us of the obvious that we said we would replace a skate park. Now, whether this will be the place or it will be another place, I'm not sure, but I am absolutely sure that we will have another skate park. Can't say when. Politician, don't want to say when. But thank you so very much for bringing up the obvious. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Mr.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Yes.
No,
right.
thank you very
Thanks.
much. Okay, next is Robert Bird. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
Welcome. Please start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to chime in. I don't have anything prepared, but it's nice to meet you all, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear me out for a few minutes. I would certainly echo everything that Jason said. I have a son. His name is Hudson. He's a freshman at Lake Oswego High School. Hudson is unique in the fact that he does play ball sports. He plays on the football team. He's played soccer. He's very passionate about skateboarding. I think that, especially in the past few years, we've seen a really big resurgence in the interest of skateboarding. And you can probably just see that as you drive around town. I actually still skateboard with Hudson. We'll go over to, there's a place called Stronger Skate Park that is in Milwaukee. And there's certainly city parks around. But I have 2 other kids that are 6 and 3. And, you know, there's certainly times where may need to get to a soccer game or do something with them. And, you know, Hudson would like to go skateboarding. So there's some competing interests there. He's not a driving age yet, so it'd be really nice if he and his buddies had somewhere to go to. So just in terms of echoing what Jason said, I think there's a need. It's really a good group of kids. I don't think they want to bother the business owners, but we all have to coexist. And, you know, people come down to Millennium Park and those restaurants, and you know, there's a certain amount of space down there, and so it's attractive for the kids because it's open and you can skate, and same with the parking garages and all that, but it doesn't exactly fit in with going and buying flowers at Saturday Market or something like that. So again, I think we're just trying to find a way for everybody to coexist in a way that, you know, keeps this peaceful community that we have, but also allows the kids to go do something fun. And I'm probably maybe the only one in this room to have gone to the original, you know, skate parks that we had. One was across from Bill's garage down there. We had that for several years, and then when they moved it over to, gosh, I think it was near Pilkington and Jean, I volunteered there in the summers, and boy, that was many years back. And then, you know, we've had a hiatus, and just, you know, speaking on behalf of my son and the other kids in town, and he's got, you know, 3 years left before he's off to college, so hopefully sooner rather than later. But I think we would all really appreciate it, and I'm just glad it's on the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, any questions at all?
Appreciate you. No, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys, appreciate your time.
Thank you. And next, Sebastian Joyce.
Can I take
Welcome.
my mask off? Is that okay?
Yeah, we'll leave it on, please.
Leave it on?
We leave our masks on. And start whenever you're ready.
All right. So thank you guys all for letting me speak here today. And I'm going to be speaking here on behalf of the skate park. I happen to be best friends with Hudson. And I feel like around the area of skateboarding, it's definitely a big stereotype. And I feel like there's a lot of biased opinions around it. And I feel like a skate park would really help take kids off of where private places are. And I feel like it would just really like, I feel like it would give us a place to like build a bigger community. And it would just be really good for us to have. And I think a couple big things that I feel could really apply to the skate park and could really benefit the city would be community school, which I feel like would be a really good thing during the summers. Is skateboarding over the pandemic was such a big opening, and I saw it explode. So many kids started doing it. It became like way more popular, and I think this summer, or for all the summers to come, I guess, I think summer camps could be hosted. There could be competitions, and I think it'd just be a really, really, really fun thing for all of us to do. And one more thing I want to add is just that I've noticed that for the park development, we're kind of stuck on building basketball courts and soccer areas and pickleball and playgrounds, and it's like, I guess I've noticed that we have a lot of those places, and skateboarding is not a place where I guess it hasn't really been introduced in Twello yet. And so I feel like adding and spending money onto more of these places that we already have a ton of, I feel like it just wouldn't benefit us as much as we would really like it to. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Councilor Mans has a question for you.
Okay.
Yes, here I am again. I really like the camaraderie among skateboarders, and I think what you said was absolutely true. There's a lot of stereotypes that aren't necessarily true. I appreciate the fact that you got up here and that you spoke to us and spoke your heart on this. And I am truly hoping that we can see something in the near future, because you're absolutely right. We have a plethora of other sports. So let's make this happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask
Go-
one question?
good. Please.
I have.
Multiple questions. Councilor Windley.
Can you confirm that it's an Olympic sport now?
Yes. Yes, you can confirm that.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. So I just want to make sure, and I knew that you would know the answer to that question. So
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. I
One
think we
more
are-
question.
Yeah.
Councilor Booth.
Yeah, I wanted to say that if you promise that one of you will participate in the next Olympic, not this one,
Yes.
Because, you know, I defend you. I feel the pain of not having this thing.
Thank you.
I will vote for that. It's good. I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. It's great. There's nothing wrong with skateboarding. I support 100%.
Thank you.
And I'm asking that you try to lobby so that when they design the park, kids like you will be part of those designs to say what you want.
Yeah, and
Okay.
just to kind of just add one more thing is I think you should, in the process of designing the park, I feel like that you should bring in some of us because I've seen parks designed by people that don't skate, just as the Olympic park that was designed this year for the
Yes.
games in Tokyo.
Yes.
It was designed by rollerbladers.
Yes.
And it was one of the worst parks that I've seen. So I feel like that I feel like that it would be really cool if you guys could bring some of us in and we could get some designers and just really make this thing happen because we got one chance to do something really good.
I vote for it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
That is all. Thank you
All right,
very much.
Thank you.
Lisa Shaw Ryan,
Hello,
welcome. That was good.
thank you. I
Welcome.
haven't been in here, it's gorgeous, thank you.
Good to have you here.
Appreciate you taking the time to listen today. I just want to say I agree with everything that's already been said, particularly building on Jason's comments. And I happen to have been to those other parks with my youngest son, and I was saying to someone that 15 years ago when I was on the web committee, we had slated skate park there. Of course, that never came to fruition then either. But just really appreciate strong consideration of this amenity in another one of our wonderful parks that we have slated for Lake Oswego. We're so fortunate to have such a wonderful group of park amenities here, and each time we consider a new park, I really appreciate the thoughtful consideration of new amenities that don't exist already. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have, Councilor Rapp has a question for you. Councilor Rapp.
Thanks, Lisa. This is more for kind of everybody that talked already, as well as you, but two things. I don't think it's out of the realm of anybody's understanding that I'm 100% in favor of a skate park.
Great.
Fortunately for me, my kids are still young enough to be able to use it for a long time. But also, I come from a generation that, I skated. It's what you did. So the fact that Lake Oswego doesn't have one is a big miss. Several of you have mentioned the stereotypes of skateboarders and skating. I think if any of the emails that we got over the last week is any indication about any stereotyping of skating in Lake Oswego, I'd say there's none. So I didn't see one email against skating or the skate park. So I think we're in good shape in that sense. And I think my understanding of our council, I think there's not going to be much argument there's not going to be much argument against building a skate park in Rassekh Park. I think that's a very, very good possibility. Some work has to be done tonight as well, but I'm very confident about the decisions we're going to make. And I think more of a suggestion as we think about this going forward, I think because of the outpouring of community support for this in designing and advocating for it, I think we have a lot of entrepreneurial people in our community that would love to be a part of building it. I think that'd be a great community kind of event for us. Martha's probably looking at me going like, legal issues, but anyway. I'm an idea guy, that's all I can say. So,
Aaron,
I'm supposed to push, right?
Aaron, I'd love to say that I think that you would find, Jason has a lot of relationships,
Right.
Seb has a lot of relationships, and I think we'd love to help participate in that and in any way that we can. And I know that there are issues around that, but that public-private is always,
Martha wouldn't
I
let me
think, a
cut
win.
down trees during the February storm either, but so I just,
Okay, well, I just appreciate the enthusiasm and
no.
appreciate the parks in this
I think
community, so thank you.
we're gonna get it done, so thank you everybody for
Let's do
advocating
it.
for it.
We could get some
Thank you.
shovels and.
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa. Next we have joining us on the Zoom, Rick Cook.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. I did have a little assignment for you to do, but I think we'll go that a different way of, basically there's three things that actually have to go into the park. It would be an entrance, a parking lot, and a field. So I was going to have you say, okay, there's three things, 30 seconds, where are you going to plunk them? Because there are certain areas on the Rassekh property that probably should be protected a little bit, and that's the watershed area. And for those that don't know, I live on the Shipley Cook property that's, we've been stewards in the area for 121 years, Cook Butte, Stevens Meadow, the Rassekh property. All at one point in time, we're under the stewardship of the Cook family. And now we're just trying to hang on to every blade of grass we still have. So that's why I have, a pretty good understanding of the area and also a strong passion for it. So as you're looking at the development of the thing, one of my big concerns is the wildlife corridor. That basically, just like this summer, we had 5 little bucks and one actually fairly big one that strolled through the vineyard. And I think I sent some pictures to everybody throughout the summer that use that corridor. And currently the place that the design team has the entrance is right on the corridor, and everything is directed. The parking lot, the driveway is all directed right along the sensitive, well, not only along it, but on top of some of the sensitive lands area. So my suggestion early on was to switch the parking lot to the Stafford Road side. You can still have the entrance on Atherton, because I'll let the Palisades Neighborhood Association fight that battle. But where you have eliminated some of the noise that would affect the wildlife. You're taking away the lights at night, once again for the wild, and the watershed piece that's there. One of the other concerns is, especially for people that are downstream from the park, is that the aquifer, anything that goes into, the catch basins, the watershed, what am I thinking of? The water collection area that's going to end up in Pecan Creek. I've talked with the Lake Oswego School District and Sustainability Network at a meeting last week about what a great opportunity it is for the educational piece for the Rassekh property. And we haven't done anything with that yet as a park department that I know of. The Lake Oswego or Oswego Lake Watershed Council has worked with the sustainability group and Lake Oswego School Department or district in getting some green teams and things. So that work, that piece is going on. We've had the Beaver Coalition of Oregon out, and they've spent $1,000 within the last 2 months on our property to protect the current beaver habitat that is right on Pecan Creek and in the Atherton area. So that's another really important place for us. The Hazelia Agricultural Heritage Tree Trail, people got together early on and said, hey, this would be a great addition to the trail, where we could incorporate with the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. And I know I've puckered a couple people because I suggested that early on, but Metro has taken a huge step forward in trying to work with them in the sensitive lands and the 2019 Parks and Rec bond money that they're going to use. So I think that's something that is going to be important to take into account as we go.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Your time has been up. I know you can't see it on your end, so I'm very sorry.
Can I just, one quick thing is that the wildlife area, they don't skate, they don't have anybody to protect them. So that's why I brought that piece up, and they don't have any place else to go. So just
let me just see if anyone has any questions for you. No, okay. Oh, excuse me. Councilor Mans has a question for you. Councilor Mans.
Yes, hello, Mr. Cook, how are you?
Great.
Great. I too have bucks in my yard. They eat my roses. The does and the fawns eat my roses. I have creeks that run through my property. And perhaps you can tell me this because you know the property so extremely well. Was that not a land, I don't want to say a garbage dump, but was it not at some point in time dirt was piled there and it was a neglected space?
That the dirt pile there was brought in from, I'm not sure if it was the Waluga Junior High School redevelopment, and it was dumped there as a holding ground. And that's another piece that if we're gonna destroy some of the sensitive lands to make it
But
more
quite some
cost-effective.
time ago, correct?
That was within probably the last 15 years.
Okay, okay. So the idea that this property has been sitting there and gone through a number of iterations, such as a land dump or dirt dump, if you will. There was a tennis center proposed. I think there was a couple of other iterations in there. Is that true?
I just know of the tennis center, and then it was always going to be, well, from the 2013 LAMP, the Lusher area master plan, it could have been just an open space place. They looked at putting the tennis center in there. There was a study done for the pool siting there.
Right, thank you. Thank you.
But once again, all the things that came up and along with traffic and access that way.
Great. And a final question, and I don't know if you know this or not. What was the original name of Cook's Butte in the Native American language?
That I don't know. A.R. Shipley was the guy that actually built the farmstead here in 1860. He built the barn, and in 1862 built the house. So I do not have that piece.
We have,
Yeah.
we have many, many experts in this town. Thank you so much, Mr. Cook, for all you do. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Look forward to working with you and the boards on getting you some good advice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
Next up, joining us virtually is Randall Yamada. Welcome. Mr.
Hi,
Yamada.
can you hear me?
Hello, yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Oh, good. Thank you. My name's Randy Yamada, and I'm the Stafford area and CPO representative to the Rassekh Park Advisory Committee. And I'm here to speak to at this point, I'm here to speak to the neighbors of Rassekh Park. The city has created in its comprehensive plan and in-depth and time-consuming process for citizen involvement in community planning in response to the statewide land use requirement known as Goal 1. If when planning parks, the city does not listen to its citizens and make real efforts to implement citizens' ideas, the process is only time wasted. Only a small fraction of the requests by the adjacent Atherton, Palisades, and Stafford neighborhood groups have been implemented in the Rassekh Park plan. Atherton Drive is a designated local street on the Lake Oswego Comprehensive Plan map. And I would like the neighbors to look up section 42.03.050 local streets, item number 2, in the Lake Oswego ordinances. It says local streets shall be designed to provide a minimum of disruption to the neighborhood livability while providing adequate and safe circulation from residential lands to collector and arterial streets. In the Rassekh plan, Atherton is used as the parking access for a multi-sports athletic complex instead of limiting it to circulation from residential lands. Also, no plan was developed for improving the adjacent traffic circle on Stafford in conjunction with a park and new community center swim facility. This is not the only concern the Palisades and Stafford neighbors have been repeatedly expressing. So please see the Palisades Neighborhood Association and Stafford area requests for this park design. For the neighbors of Rassekh Park, please look up the Lake Oswego Comprehensive Plan and read goals 1, 5, and 8 about equitable citizen involvement, preservation, and parks planning. Neighbors of Rassekh's Park need to find a way to have city leadership respond to their concerns. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yamada. Does anyone have any questions? No, okay, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Okay, is there anyone else here that would like to provide comment? Okay. All right, so next item on the agenda is our police department accreditation. Joining us here is Chief Jorgensen. We have Scott Hayes with the Oregon Accreditation Alliance. And with Chief Jorgensen is Ms. Ripley. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Dale Jorgensen. I have the privilege of serving as the police chief here in Lake Oswego.
Hi, I'm Barb Ripley, and I'm the administrative assistant to Chief Jorgensen, and I'm the accreditation manager for the police department. And I'd like to introduce Scott Hayes. He's the director for the Oregon Accreditation Alliance.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, City Council and members of the community. As I've been introduced, I'm Scott Hayes, Executive Director of the Oregon Accreditation Alliance. I appreciate the opportunity today to address the council and to present the Lake Oswego Police Department with their 5th award of accreditation. The Lake Oswego Police Department joined the Oregon Accreditation Alliance in December of 2006 and was awarded their initial accreditation in January of 2009. This is the agency's 5th reaccreditation under the leadership of Chief Dale Jorgensen. Law enforcement is currently experiencing a changing society with increased demands for police accountability and transparency. As in our past, our profession must face these challenges and work with our communities to address their concerns. Accreditation is one step towards building community trust and the legitimacy of our profession. To that end, the Oregon Accreditation Alliance was formed under the direction of the Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police, the Oregon State Sheriff's Association, and the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials. We currently provide accreditation services for 72 law enforcement and communication centers, both in Oregon and Alaska. Accreditation goals are straightforward. They're to support continued improvement of law enforcement services, to establish best practice through professional standards, to establish agency accountability and transparency, and to enhance management of operations. The accreditation process is significant for any agency to be evaluated by an outside independent source to have their policies and practices scrutinized. There are 105 standards the agency must adhere to. These standards are based on best practice nationally and through changes in Oregon law. In addition to each standard, the agency must show proof of compliance that the agency follows policy and best practice. Reaccreditation, as the agency is currently in, occurs every 3 years, which brings us to today. I know that a number of staff members were involved in the process, but I would like to recognize Executive Assistant Barb Ripley as the agency's accreditation manager with our assessors throughout the process. Ms. Ripley did a phenomenal job of preparing the review for the agency and for our assessors. Chief, on behalf of the Oregon Accreditation Alliance and its board of directors, I would like to present you with your 5th award of accreditation. And as the saying goes, it's in the mail. Actually, it's in the mail today, which this is what you will receive. So, Chief, again, thank you for being a member of the Oregon Accreditation Alliance. And if there are any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
No, I hope not.
Director Hayes, thank you very much for the award, and I can't echo it enough. Barb did a stellar job, and I will say it was her first time doing our reaccreditation, and it couldn't have gone any better. She did a fabulous job.
Ms. Ripley, what did you learn through this process?
A lot of patience. I did a lot of training to make sure that everything was put in the way it needed to be, and I asked a lot of questions.
What does the accreditation, what does it signify for because not every department receives this corrected in the state, it's not a requirement. What's the significance for the community?
Well, I think as what Director Hayes has said, one of the significances is that we are adhering to not only the best practices in police work, but also to all the law changes that have taken place throughout the last 3 years in Oregon. And we have to show not only that our policies are kept up to date, but also that we are following those policies and doing the things that have changed. And that's just a fraction of it. One of the things I think that you're going to see, because the legislature has now come forward and said that agencies that are of a certain size by 2026, and Director Hayes can correct me, but I believe it's by 2026, every agency that is 35 or more sworn officers has to be accredited. And to know that our agency was one of, and Director Hayes, you can tell me the first one, but I know we were one of the first ones in Oregon, probably not the first one, but probably within the first 10 that were accredited back in 2009, I think.
Yes, absolutely. You are correct. You're one of probably the top 3 that were the initial agencies that joined Oregon Accreditation Association. And you are correct in that the legislature has now mandated agencies with 35 or more officers sworn become accredited within a 3-year period. And we believe that in several years from now, once that goal for benchmark has been met, that there will be a trickle-down effect to smaller agencies, which puts the Lake Oswego Police Department definitely ahead of that requirement. So they are to be commended at that.
That's great. Thank you. A question from Councilor Mbu.
Yes, thank you, really, and congratulations, Chief. So
thank you.
I know what accreditation is. It's hard, and but sir, in your accreditation standards, I see you have 105. When an agency needs, because I'm sure that's how it's done. If it's initiated, if it needs improvement, and there's some areas like where it's excellent, that's what I do when we accredit schools. Can the council have, like area where we need improvement, or area where it's initiate, or area where we are very strong? Is it possible to have that?
Are you addressing that to me, sir?
Yes, both, whoever can answer, because I would love to read the standards and where we score high and where we need improvements, and yeah.
I understand, sir. Yes, what happens is once the assessors have done their assessment and ensured that every standard is met, both in policy and by practice, the assessor or assessors that do that create what's called a final report. A final report covers all the basic information as to the last 3 years and how the agency met their assessments. So that will be forwarded, if it has not already been, to the chief, so that he has a copy of that. The other thing is when it comes to, and I'm not sure I'm spot on this question, but when it comes to addressing issues, the board, there are 20 board members, both sheriffs, chiefs, and communications personnel, that look at best practice nationwide and Oregon law. And so annually, we review most legislative changes and decide what standards that best meet the best practice for law enforcement agencies, communications units in Oregon. And then we'll develop those new standards and enter them in annually into policy manuals. So it has the opportunity to grow. Now, if a city council or deems it they have areas of concerns, they would specifically address that with the chief himself. And I will also point out that all of our information, including our standards manual, are on our website, open for anyone to see.
And to just kind of follow up on that real quick, it's kind of in our preview, both Martha and I have talked about going forward. And perhaps as we get more involved with a community conversation around policing and how we're going to present some of this information, accreditation would absolutely be part of that. So I kind of envision kind of that January meeting that we had proposed at one point where we talk about all the numbers, because that's really where the accreditation is. We have to show use of force reports, we have to show complaint reports, so it kind of goes hand in hand. And then every 3 years when we're re-accredited, we could come in at that same meeting and show you that report and present it. So it's in my mind, that's what we'll do in this coming January, is show you our accreditation report. It is public knowledge. You can get it right now if you would like, but that's kind of how we're envisioning this process.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Chief, Ms. Ripley, Mr. Hayes, thank you all very much. Great work, and we really appreciate you being here and presenting this to us, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Director Hayes.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Rassekh Park Project Design Update. Joining us is Director Anderholm, and I believe he may have reinforcements, yeah.
Reinforcements. Good afternoon, Ivan Anderholm, Parks and Recreation Director. With me this afternoon, I have Stephen Tuttle with McKinsey. He is the lead design person with our consultant group for development of Rassekh Park. So tonight, I want to say it's a night. I know it looks so dark outside. This afternoon, what we want to do is just have a conversation and an update on where we're at in the design process for Rassekh Park. Basically, I'm just going to kind of go through a little bit of the background and then turn it over to Stephen, and he's going to present kind of our process as well as where we're at on the design at this point, and then open up to questions and conversation with the council. So Rassekh Park, I think we're all aware, it's on the corner of Atherton and Stafford, the southern portion of Lake Oswego, right across from Lusher. Rassekh Park is spoken about specifically in both our Parks Master Plan, our Parks Plan 2025, and also our Lusher Area Master Plan. In both those plans, it's classified as a hybrid park, which means that a portion of the property is sensitive lands and should be maintained and enhanced as such, as well as a portion that can be developed. In both cases, in the master plan and in Lusher Area Master Plan, it is called out the developed part for active recreation. What is active recreation? Active recreation is anything from ball fields to tennis courts to anything that you do more active than sitting and enjoying the park. The impetus behind the development of the plan for this was also driven by our 2012 athletic field study that the city worked on with the school district, and again on the 2019 review of that athletic field study that reaffirmed that in Lake Oswego, though we have many, many athletic fields, our use demand by Lake Oswego residents outweighs the number of fields that we have available. So we have a lot of people that are pushed off of fields. In the Lusher Area Master Plan, it was during the time that we were looking at doing a indoor tennis facility there as that plan was being developed. And at the end of that, when there was an indication from the council to exclude that from the Lusher Area Master Plan, and we went back to the active recreation, there was also a component that was driven by those folks that created the Lusher Master Plan in conjunction with the Palisades neighborhood to include some level of neighborhood park amenities. So what you have, what we're going to be presenting, Stephen's going to be talking about is the process. I want to go through a few things that he may not touch on. And I do need to make just a public statement on the sensitive lands portion of the park. The entire sensitive lands overlay of the park, which is our CRP zone, as well as a delineated wetland, we're not touching that as part of this project. We're not building over the top of it. We're not mitigating over it. We're not touching the soil in it. So I do want to correct that because I think there was a misstatement that we're covering up the sensitive lands. We are not doing that. In building this plan, obviously, and this is kind of Park Building 101, but I'll kind of go through it. We have to come up with a lot of reports to meet our land use. One of them is a traffic impact analysis that'll be submitted with our land use application. Because this is a park that park uses in athletic fields are not specifically covered in our comprehensive plan as far as requirements for parking. We also did an in-depth parking study to come up with the proper number of parking spaces. We did an initial cultural assessment report where we looked at the land because of the proximity to the creek and had an archaeologist come out and examine, and that will continue through the initial stages of development. Wetland delineation, full arborist report for the entire property, a geotechnical report for the property, and then also we created a sustainability matrix with the project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Tuttle with McKinsey, and he's going to go through the project.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephen Tuttle. I am the reinforcements that we spoke of earlier. I'm a landscape architect at McKinsey, and really see the project as a privilege to work on with your community. Just starting with this slide here, Ivan covered the site really well, but just to get everybody oriented just a little bit more, on the right is Stafford, there on the left is the sensitive lands area where you see some conifers and some other deciduous trees. And then it was mentioned earlier about the spoils of soil that came from Aluga. I think that was probably 3 years ago, and that's towards the top of your screen. That's covered with tarp and has been residing there for a few years. So Ivan also covered this, but just out of the gate, really this is the vision for the park that we've kind of held in front of the design and the community as we've moved through this. It's really about active recreation, and it has been looked at as tennis in the past and some other things, but really is centered on that active recreation that Ivan just addressed. And then additionally, the park has been under the city's purview for the last 25 years or so, so it's really exciting to see something happening on the site right now. Where we're at in the project, we started about March as a consultants on the project, and really we've just been in the outreach phase till now, or through now, I should say. And that's gathering information, getting the reports in hand that Ivan just mentioned, and then reaching out to the public through a variety of different mechanisms. That led us through schematic design, which we concluded kind of late summer, and now we're in design development on the concept, and then we're headed towards land use review in the next month or so. Following that, we'll go into construction documents this winter, and then permit bid in the spring, and hope to be breaking ground this summer on this project. Ivan covered these items. These are the things that have been happening in the background that result in lengthy reports that will be submitted with our land use application package. So I really want to take you through the design, and in particular through the lens of community engagement, and since that's been the primary vehicle for us moving the project forward to date. So if you haven't been to the website, we do have a project website that's set up separately, independently for this project, so that the community can go there, get the latest information, and see what's current on the project. So we launched that in April. Of course, with the pandemic in full swing, that was really the only method available to us was for online outreach. So the first online open house was in April. And we asked a series of questions of the community about what they would envision for a park like this, with the premise that the park is designated for active recreation. And what really came out of that was the preference for the natural character. People really valued that. Walking paths, playground, shade, restroom, those were some of the high-ranking things that came out of that first outreach effort. So with that information in hand, we went to work trying to generate a handful, or 3 options, I should say, for what the park could be. And as you can imagine, if you have a large rectangle on a confined a limited piece of property, there's only so many ways that you can arrange that rectangle that actually work. We actually worked through about a dozen options that didn't make it to this sort of rendered state. And we sort of kicked the tires on all of those to see what would work. We tried some things that were a little bit more out of the box. And as we sort of did more code research along the way, that also informed our process. One of the things we learned in the code research was that fact that we do have to access the property off of Atherton. We can't, by code, access it off of Stafford. Can you explain why? I'm not a traffic engineer, but I will summarize my understanding of it. The volume of traffic is lower off of Atherton, and that makes it a safer entry and exit experience.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So the second online open house, we brought these 3 options forward, and really, just to summarize, the first one sort of prioritized sort of the natural character more so, and with the field in the middle, baseball, soccer, lacrosse on that field, and then with parking sort of between that and the sensitive land area. I know these are small, but towards the top you see a basketball court on the right, and then a restroom up above to the left. Mm-hmm. The primary components of each that we heard in the first open house are in all of the plans, but we also heard sort of the second tier of interest from that first open house about other priorities, which is basketball, pickleball, and a skate park. And then there were other lower ranking things that didn't make the cut, so to speak, to advance to this level. So that's some of the nuance of some of these plans. The second plan, you can see the shape is a little bit different for the field with some different buffers. But you can see on the top, we've got pickleball, basketball, a playground, and a skate area up there as well. So it kind of has everything on the top of the diagram there with parking on the left. And then the option on the right is leaning the most towards a primary athletic field experience. So we tried really hard to see if it was possible to fit more than one field surface on the site, and that's kind of what that looked like. So coming out of that process, we refined it to one diagram in particular, and we took that to the neighborhood in August. So we had a couple months there that we were advancing the plan, and what we heard from the community was closest to that option 2 that we were looking at, which really provided the most variety of amenities and program elements to the greater community. Option 1 was a little more natural. Option 3 was a little more focused on athletic sports and athletic activities. So the greater community feedback was the most variety of options for the park. Mm-hmm. So I want to walk through the design a little bit here. So you can see there's a base plan and a plan with additional features. We took that to the neighborhood in August in person, and that was right when there was kind of a swing in masking and the mandate and the Delta variant. So we went ahead with the in-person meeting right at that time, but we realized right at that time that not everybody was going to feel comfortable going to an in-person meeting, so we made the decision to a month later have the same presentation and do it online. So we had 2 different events, same plan, and presented it in 2 different venues. So the plan on the left, the base plan, you can see large field space that has 2 baseball fields, lacrosse, and soccer. And that's the main piece of the project, access off of Atherton, sensitive lands area to the left. The reason the parking lot is, and we've already talked about the access to the park, but the reason the parking lot is right there is it's a little more flexible with the grading. And as we applied sort of a cost evaluation to this project and tried to balance what we heard from the community with the available funds that we were trying to apply to this project, if we're going to move a large flat rectangle around on the site, the best place and the least expensive place to put it is right where the flattest part of the site is, which is kind of right in the middle. All that to say, where the parking lot is, there's a little more give in the grading. So it would be very expensive to move the field over and the parking to a different location. And we'd be spending money on paving the parking lot or a long access aisle, which would be better money spent towards maybe some better amenities for the park itself. So the base plan has all the base features that we talked about, walking paths, the field, the natural character. But we also recognized that it was important to continue to track sort of those other things that we heard the community was interested in, but we didn't have in the target budget at this time. And so that's what the plan on the right does, is it really shows how we could continue to consider having pickleball, basketball, a skate park or a playground in an additional feature sort of plan. We presented this to the neighborhood. They had a real interest in seeing picnicking, shelters, and a playground, some concerns about access and traffic. And so that was some of the feedback that we got from the neighborhood. So with that feedback, we made an adjustment to the design in the base plan. You can see there in the upper left, and I realize it's small, but there's a play area that's been included in the base plan, and that's also accompanied with picnicking and a shelter. So we made that adjustment after we heard the neighborhood's feedback to the original plan. And then the plan on the right, again, continues to show how these other elements could be included that we received a lot of positive feedback from the community on, but didn't have in the target budget for this project at this time.
Mr. Tuttle, what were the access concerns? You said the community had.
Off of Stafford.
Oh.
Neighborhood, there's a lot of feedback that accessing off of Atherton Drive would provide a lot of traffic issues for the neighborhood.
Okay, gotcha.
And then lastly, just one slide after this. This is just to say, we've also had a PAC, Public Advisory Committee, meetings throughout this whole process. So we've had, I think, four PAC meetings along the way that have helped inform the project development as we've gone. And we've been bouncing our ideas off of them to get their feedback. And that's included neighborhood members, athletic community members, someone from the Lusher Farm area. So we've had a good broad response from the PAC. And I'll just end on this slide, just to show you what the base plan is for discussion. We can talk to this slide, but this has the current design as it stands today. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
I think that we're ready for some questions if council and the mayor have some questions about the design, where we're at. The one thing I will add is this concept that you have before you is based off of a 30% design development level. So it's still a little squishy. It's not completely revised, but it does meet up with the targeted $5 million total development, including design cost for the development of the park.
Okay.
So that's why you're not seeing, there is not a skate spot, skate area, or either of the court amenities.
So Ivan, just anticipating the council's questions, why don't you talk a little bit about where would the skate park go, and then what would the plan be to fund it, just anticipating what we heard earlier.
Okay. So dependent on the size and what we've heard and the feedback that we've gotten from the skate community, and I think that some of the counselors have actually had some interaction with the skate community as well. You know, you would be looking at probably about a 10,000 square foot skate area. The one that's shown here, which is more of a skate spot, is kind of a squiggly line central right along the top. It isn't that big. Yeah, it's about
2,000 feet.
About, yeah, 2,000, 2,500. So what would we would anticipate that if you were going to give us direction to explore a skate park, where you see the basketball court, pickleball court area is the area that we would look to enlarge that site. The unique thing about that is you'll see that it appears that there's like a road that comes in across the north of the property to a building. That's actually our maintenance access, which when you're looking at a skate, that would actually give direct access to the pathway, the multimodal pathway that's along Stafford, and would also interiorly be connected to the parking area. So I think that would be the most appropriate area. In development of that, you're looking at a cost between, well, I'm going to give you a big range because we haven't really sat down and designed it, but $250,000 to $500,000 for us to do that. Stephen and I have talked a little bit, along with Bruce Powers, who's our in-department project manager. If we were given direction to explore that, I think part of what we would do is definitely involve our local community, but we'd also probably involve a company that is very specific to skate park development. And the unique thing about those, and I've worked with them previously, is that they also have a public and community engagement process that they run that involves both the kids and the adults that are going to be involved in. It would flesh out into a very usable facility if we were given that direction.
Okay, so but just a general, nodding of the heads, who is on board with looking into the 10,000 square foot kind of minimum skate park? Is that what direction? Yeah. Okay. With the involvement of the community folks and okay. Now you haven't gone out to bid with this, so we don't know if that's you would come back and we would see how we can make it all work within the budget or what we need to do to make it work.
Yes, exactly. And like I said, because we're at the 30%, and I think in your packet you were given kind of a project budget.
Right.
Not that we want to shy away from contingencies, but as we move through the process, I think our contingencies get a little bit tighter as well. So we don't know, we won't actually know until we bid the project. And I can tell you on the previous park projects that we did that didn't have a lot of built structures in them, being Woodmont and Iron Mountain a couple of years ago, we were surprised that it was actually less expensive than we were expecting for this type of development. So even on the East Waluga ball fields, it came in where actually slightly less than what we expected. So not saying that that's going to happen, but I think if we're given the direction to do it, we can come up with a design, and as we move closer to it, the other thing we can do is use a technique in our bidding where we look at it as an all add or deductive alternative to the overall plan when we get to the point of bidding it, so that we do have a way out if it does come way out of, but we'll give decision points to the council. As far as potentially funding the additional costs that may be in that, the one thing that comes to mind to me is this project is eligible for system development because it is a capacity building facility. We did receive kind of an unanticipated in our, we anticipate, thank you Sean Cross for anticipating very conservatively, but we did have actually one project that was substantially larger than what we were expecting for this year's revenue off of the SDCs, that quite honestly could cover the cost of adding this to this park without looking at dedicating additional park bond funds to it.
Were you already anticipating the use of SDCs to cover what portion of the project cost?
No,
Or no?
no, this was a $5 million
All
out
bond.
of bond. Yeah.
Okay.
So it does give some flexibility in there, and I would say that as we go through the development, it sounds as though that's the direction we're getting from the council. We can come back and check in with you when we're closer, when we get our final cost estimate before we go to bid, and so that council can be aware of where we think we're going to land.
Right. Are there any, so transportation was, reading through the website's great, because it does really have all you have the videos from the meetings you held, the public meetings, as well as the results of the surveys and all of the, many pages of comments, which were really helpful to go through. So when it comes to transportation improvements, I just wanted to kind of thinking back, did we not, we're not thinking of using some of our ARPA dollars to do some transportation, kind of a look along?
Yeah, so on you've had for a council goal for the last 2 years to do essentially I want to call it a vision, but that's not the right word, but a sort of a long-term look on what you want to have happen for not just cars, but also for pedestrians and bikes along Stafford and McVeigh. And so our proposal was to use some of your ARPA dollars to do that study. Because I think one of the things I think we need to talk about is sort of how much right-of-way will you need, and what's the impact on the existing properties all along that whole corridor if you're going to go that route. So it's not going to be exactly what the neighbors have asked for a full funding plan. It probably won't do that, but it would at least give you an idea of what a real cross-section of this road might look like in the future.
No, that's great. And, I'm thinking specifically along the bike pedestrian infrastructure, right? We heard so many of the comments were around, and you've incorporated the walking path, here, which is really nice. But, let's make it walkable and bikeable to the park, not just to, mitigate some of the traffic concerns, but just to add to the kind of healthy environment this, park creates, not just coming to the park itself and then doing healthy activities, but even just getting to the park itself, especially as we wanted to make it accessible to a broader swath of the community and accessible to youth, to people that don't drive, right? So making it safe for people to walk and bike would be an added benefit to those who live, closest by. But, I live on the other side of town, from this park, and it's even not that bad of I've ridden my bike over here many times, and it's not that bad of a bike ride from the clear other side of town either. So in regards to that, I'm kind of thinking along the lines of, as we kind of think holistically about this encouraging safe, healthy means of transportation, thinking about this park as our newest park in the system that's going to be around for generations, making that accessibility more than just creating the fields, but kind of creating multiple ways to access it, to make sure the park itself is very accessible. And going back to the comments we just made about involving, in regards to the skate park, we're talking about involving, folks in the community with knowledge of that sport, and then involving youth as well, but hopefully not just on the skate park. That is one thing I noticed watching some of the videos, that I'd say 100% of the people that I saw giving input were older adults. If we could actively reach out to some of the, not just organized sports, but a segment of the youth community, just in regards to the park in general, and also to some folks in the community that have differently abled, children, just to make sure that this park, again, a park that's going to be here for generations, is really able to serve all members, because that seemed to be really emphasized in the comments we heard, that having a variety of activities to serve a wide segment of the population, young folks, older folks, and everyone in between, and folks of all different abilities. And the only other thing I wanted to touch on, just around the sustainability features, along those same lines, I think we should be thinking about, this is a park, for now, but also for the future, thinking about what those needs are going to be, even 10, 20 years from now. So, at a minimum, we're talking pedestrian safety, the carpool parking, EV parking, least amount of impervious surface, that we can, and just making sure that the space is as inclusive and welcoming as possible. Thinking, reading the field report, which was also on that Rassekh website, we see that there's been a decline, I mean nationwide, but here locally as well in youth sports. You say, well, yet, we don't have enough fields, and there's different reasons for that. And I think making these fields, doing the artificial turf, and that's really helping, creating more space, because it seemed like a big reason we don't have enough field space is the rainouts and rescheduling and all the like. So having a facility that can be used as much as possible is very helpful. But also noting that there's just such barriers to participation, especially in the team sports, because of the cost and the highly competitive nature. So, I mean, the cost and the highly competitive nature, that's nothing we're going to solve in the design. We're here to talk about the design of the park, but just as something for us to think about, we create these spaces. We're here talking about the physical space, but then how we can, create in the broader context, a really accessible way to keep the kids, and kind of going to Councilor Wyndon, with the blue zone, city, creating a really healthy city in everything that we do, and the safe transportation. I just think that's something to look at. What can we do here in Lake Oswego, where we do have these great community assets, but to create that programming in a way that it is accessible and maybe not as just open to more kids to participate. Because things do, I can see, so competitive, or if you're not playing every day, you're not playing at all, And I can see why things have gone down. And it's great then along those same lines to offer the these other amenities to folks who don't want to, but I think that it can be a little bit of both. So thank you, that is my feedback, and I appreciate it. And now I know there's others that have feedback too. That was it. Okay, Councilor Rapp.
All right, I got a long one, so bear with me. You talked about, Mayor, our commitment to diversity and our duty as stewards of the city to encourage access to sport for everybody in our city. As hopefully you all know, but maybe you don't, that the Generation Z, which is, I guess 3 generations removed from me, but have some of the biggest or largest dropout of sport rates of any generation. And so it's really, if we have an opportunity to increase access to sport and get kids playing sport more, then it's obviously, it's our duty. If you also think about access to sport for females, skating is one of the sports that females have been drawn to, and allows them a gateway to other sports. So skating is not just for skaters, it's about encouraging females to play as well. So there's a lot of angles, a lot of ways that we can help our community by doing a skate park. So with that said, here's my feedback, Ivan. First question is, what is the overlook berm? E in that picture, right underneath the pickleball courts.
I can answer that. Yeah, sorry, I didn't address every thing on the plan as I should have. The overlook berm in the upper right circle is, it does a couple of things. One, part of the feedback was about spectating opportunities. It gives people a chance to enjoy this park from sort of a different angle than maybe you have at other parks. So it's just a mound of soil, maybe 12 feet high, and you can get up on top of it and you can watch the athletics happening from sort of a unique position. On the other hand, it's sort of a interesting feature of the park that gives it a little bit of identity. And then thirdly, people can get up there and they can kind of look out across the Lusher Farm area, which we thought would be kind of a nice feature of the park. And then lastly, we're moving a lot of dirt around, so we're looking for ways
you gotta get rid of it
to stash the dirt so that we don't have to pay to haul it off. So if we can keep the soil on site, that's a win. So.
Okay. So my suggestions are either A, you nix that and put the skate park there if you need 10,000 square feet, or to the south of the field, it seems like a big area just to this immediately to the south there, where the path goes through. Maybe there's a way to move that path closer to the field so you have more space for a skate park. So the 2 suggestions there. I think there's ample space to find a skate park or a larger one. I think that's a path. The waterway is over here in G. This is the weight of the stormwater.
I'll make a comment, Councilor, if that's okay. Just for reference, the area where the basketball and pickleball is about 16,000 square feet.
Okay. I would also advocate that with just a few painted lines, you can make the pickleball courts cross-functional with tennis courts. Super easy. I'll paint them myself, right, Martha? Okay. Then the last thing I would say is it looks like, we do have, I like the idea, Joe, of the transportation dollars from ARPA. So maybe there's a question for Martha, which is, we have a lot of money allocated for the North Shore Bridge project, right? And hopefully it comes in way, lower than we have expected. If there are savings from the bridge, could we put it towards these additional funding options of the basketball courts, the pickleball courts, and the skate park?
I'd have to look at the regulations. I don't believe so. Remember, I told you that the number of types of capital projects you can spend ARPA dollars on are actually prescribed by federal treasury regulations. You'd be safe spending it on transportation improvements, but I don't believe you could spend it on recreational capital.
But we can, so then we can use ARPA dollars for the transportation, which then offsets all the other costs, which just makes it all affordable.
Yeah, and just as a reminder on ARPA, as soon as we know the North Shore Bridge, Erica and I will be back to have a more detailed conversation with all y'all about the transportation improvements. And what you told us last time is you wanted to spend it on pathways. So,
pathways, sir.
Yeah, maybe we can spend it on the pathway. I'm not sure that's going to get you what you're looking for in terms of enough funding for the skate park. It sounds like SDCs, which are it sounds like you have a funding source for the skate park.
Right. So any final messages, I think we should do the 10,000 square skate park, we should add the basketball courts, and we should take the pickleball courts / tennis courts.
Okay. And just one comment back to you on that one, Counselor, is we will look at how we can fit things in with this direction. If we can't, the one thing I can say too is that in the Lesher Area Master Plan, there is a prescribed area on the east side of Hazelia Field that actually in the Lesher Area Master Plan talks about hard surface courts as well. So, and as we move through the process that will be initiated this upcoming year with Clackamas County on the master planning within the county for that property, it will actually open up the ability for us to implement that plan with more park-like and recreation.
So what you're saying is you could put the basketball court and the pickleball courts over there.
We could possibly do that. There's already a place allocated for that in the plan that indicates that area, which quite honestly would give a separate access off of the corner of Burgess with separate parking in that area for access to it, which might work overall looking down the road. 50 years might be a better plan than trying to make it fit here. So, but this site does offer better pedestrian and multimodal access because it is right off of a pathway that is developed.
Thank you.
That's great.
No further questions.
Thank you. Councilor Mook?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ivan. I'm very excited about this, and, thank you. I enjoy every Sunday the field of park and recreation playing football. And as a father, I experienced having my kid. I remember that skate park at the Pinkington when my kid was coming from France every summer. It was very sad that I had to take him to Tualatin or to some areas when, I'm kind of, there's some patriotism of city that I have. When I see something more beautiful than in Lake Oswego, I get mad. I say, why? Like the library, and why we don't have a skate park. And as a father, I say, come on, and we should have a skate park. It was something that I didn't understand why. So the discussion is when we should do it and how, but it's not like a question that, we are discussing. Everybody agrees that we have to have that, and very fast, the kid who was here, he made me think, that not only we should have it, but we should make them part of the design, because in all honesty, many of us adults, we don't know how to design we have to have them in it. And I've always fought for that in my schoolings, in my belief in pedagogy, constructivism is something very important. We cannot design things for the children. It's like no one can tell my story. I'm the only one that can tell my story. I am the only one that can be part of where I want to play. We are past the time when you design, oh, I bought you a playground. The children and they need to be part of those who give, advice. Okay, do it this way, put this thing. And the most important part is for far too long, we forget those who are differently able. So when we say skate park, we just think of the guys like me who can walk with their 2 feet, but we should think of those who have a wheelchair or have some devices, how they can use the park. Otherwise, it's not inclusive. And in this era of, progress, because we are the 21st century, we should not have, I think of my cousin when we grow up together. He's now a doctor, very brilliant, but we always put them apart because they're differently able. Oh, you cannot play football, you cannot do it. That's a way past that. And I think in the park, we should think of how everyone, and when we say all the people in Lake Oswego, those who we call the malvoyants, those who don't see well, who are differently able, can use the park, those who cannot walk, those who everybody should be able to use the park. And that way, and Lake Oswego should be part, those who are the first to do certain things, because we are the best city. We have to do that. We have to show as a cities, that we can do it better. You have a park before us, but we are doing it better than you, because everyone can go and skate on our parks. So that's something that as an educator, I see some of my students, I want them to be all able to go and skate, no matter how their ability is. The second one, so I talk about it, is the money. We always have a way to find money. If you hear, no, that's it. The reality is this. I don't like when people talk about conservatism. It's a pick and choose. Their money we put in some places that here it's our children who will go have fun and grow, because it's the motor skills that are developed over there. It's a learning place. So rather than, I know we have to fund my friend's plan. The capital improvement program infrastructure is very important, and it can be part of that. It's infrastructure. So thank you, Ivan. You are part of my favorite folks because you make me play. Thank you, and and all the folks out there. Huh? Yeah, another soccer field. And Ivan, we play till, even those who complain about the lights, because we don't have a lot of field, we have to play at 7:45 till 9. But if we have more field, we won't need to play till 8 o'clock. 2 weeks ago, we finished at 9:30, the game. So, and also lights are necessary in soccer field. I think, it's not something we discuss here.
Right.
So thank you, and more field, more places for the youth here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Councilor Burdick.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to say I'm absolutely for the skate park, and I think we need to do it right. So if, let's make sure we get the right size, we get the right designers in, the engagement from the community. I'm so excited about this. I just think it's something that gives, people of all ages who maybe don't play on a sports team, it gives them an opportunity and an outlet. So I just fully support that. And again, I just want to make sure that we plan the right size, that we get to meet all the requirements. I don't skate, so I don't know the lingo of what it should be, but let's just make sure we really do it right, because if we're gonna invest in it, you know, again, I want it to last for years to come. My other question is, in terms of the option 3 that was shown, you showed it with 2 fields. Did you look at that option and instead of having that second baseball field, put the other amenities in that site, in that portion?
That one had a lot of the most trade-offs. We prioritized the response we got for maximum field play. You can see the brown circle there is a playground in to the left there. But yeah, it didn't leave as much room for some of the other larger elements like basketball or skate park. It just couldn't fit.
Okay, I just wasn't sure. I don't know the dimensions of like the baseball and how it all fit in. So I just wanted to make sure we kind of really looked at all the options. I do like Plan 2, so that's not me criticizing Plan 2. Just again, being a designer myself, I like to just hash out every possibility. So I'm glad to hear that you guys did look and see, make sure you ruled it out, I guess, for the other fitting skate park, pickleball, and so forth in that space. And just that doesn't make more sense. Did the community not like this option because of the 2 fields or because of the location? I mean, like, what was the feedback? Because if they only saw it with 2 fields.
Depends on who you ask. There were a lot of people that liked option 3. The people that use sports fields, they liked option 3. And those people, generally speaking, liked option 1 less. And so kind of option 2 became, and the same could be said vice versa for 1.
Because I was just thinking, like, if you put, it sounds like we're not going to be fitting a basketball court and probably a lot of pickleball in option 2 if we put the skate park there.
Correct.
So really,
Yeah,
option
correct.
2, you get
Right, for
the
that
big
size.
field and the skate park. So again, I just didn't know if you looked at option 3 from, okay, we've got the one big field, and then where the second field is, that's the skate park.
We did not look at that option. We didn't look at that through the development and through the community. We didn't take a look at option 3 and try to add the other amenities in there. We'd have to go back and look at it. I think on option 3, just looking at it, the baseball fields are also on that field are constricted because of the width of the property. So they're, instead of being a 200-foot outfield fence,
Okay.
which is actually both fast pitch softball for girls and Little League baseball level, I think that's about a 175. So the fields are a little
Gotcha.
bit less usable on it. We could go look back at it, but again, what we're doing is we're looking at, we still have the same amount of square footage to fit everything into, depending on the configuration. And going back to the field, the 1 and 2 and 3 being an option where we had the parking on the east side, so you come in. One of the considerations that the design team had many conversations about, and as we developed our sustainability matrix, was trying to minimize the amount of impervious and heat-producing surfaces within the park. So when we looked at that and how we would look at the queuing that would go back for people accessing Atherton, it's better to have a longer neck towards your parking that's straight, and it eliminates a large amount of paving that we'd have to do just to access the parking. So that was a consideration we had. And then in other conversations on the consideration of the fields and the location of parking, and I know I'm kind of going a little bit off topic here, the other thing that we looked at was the trade-off of either having the parking next to the wildlife corridor and the sensitive lands, or having the athletic field with continual activity and light pollution that can be on it. And also being considerate of the immediate neighbors that are on the other side of the sensitive lands. And then there's a 1-acre parcel that's HOA owned, that's kind of a treed area. But then there are backyards that are big home backyards, 15 feet deep. So they're right there. So the other consideration was trying to get that lights and the actual noise of the activity doesn't take place necessarily in the parking lot. It's really on the field. Moving that as far away from the sensitive area and the homes as we could. So that's a lot of the thought process, but to your original question, we didn't really consider 3 of adding the other amenities because at this point, in the process, we're really looking at how many athletic fields can we fit, and what is the general feeling from the public on the development of it. And quite honestly, you lose some of the park-like aesthetic when you have those fields pushed in there, multiple levels of grading, and it kind of makes it look a little tighter than
No, as I said, I do
number two.
like option 2, so that was not, this is not meant to be a criticism, just making sure that we're really sifting through all the options. And I know often if you show a client one thing, they don't necessarily think how it can be used with some of the components and not other of the components. So that's more where my question was just kind of coming from. And I think it's also important for us to kind of look at option 2 and realize if we do the skate park and we do, you know, I think I'm going to say in quote, the larger kind of right skate park, I think what we're looking for, that it does seem like it's unlikely that we will have basketball and or pickleball.
Yes.
I mean, again,
no,
I
that's
think you're
correct.
keeping a really nice kind of natural feel, and to your point, the more that you add in, the less you have a natural feel. And since we do have space potentially over across the way.
And that was really the walking paths and the natural character were the biggest, the highest ranking feedback we got in both processes. Was as much as we can do to keep that, we really want to. And really this plan is a way to demonstrate really to the counselors here, like that we didn't want to preclude this conversation so that we could say, if it was all blue sky, look, you could fit each of these things on, even though that may not be the desire of the council or what we have money for at this point, but we didn't want to preclude that, and we were glad to have this conversation. You can see the base design just kind of is able to bring those things in for this conversation, so.
No, and I think the pathways are great, and to, you know, my colleagues, you know, I think as much as we can make everything accessible to the other area,
connected.
Yeah, more connected to everything else in the area, because we have so much with Lusher Farm, and we're gonna have the aquatic center, and even Lake Ridge. There's so much that if we can make it easier for parents to go to one spot, and if they have kids that are at least old enough that can kind of go on their own to the different locations within this whole almost complex, I think that's really exciting. So, you know, again, it looks like you've done a lot of thought that direction, continue it. And I think I said it before, but in case I didn't, I love the berm. I think that's so cool. So,
thank you.
Okay.
and you can watch both skate and soccer at the same time. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Nguyen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Director Anderholm, and I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said already. I think that certainly the consensus is that, you know, that we all agree that this park needs to go in here, and I think that, you know, we're all consensus that there is a skate park. Doing nothing is not an option. I'm going to put it out there. I know that there are people that may think that, you know, we should leave it as is. That's not an option for me. I think that we have an obligation to our community to provide these facilities. However, I think we also need to be good neighbors, and I think that's something where, again, looking at where the parking is at, it's so close to where the wildlife areas is. I know that there is concern about moving the fields closer to there and the potential for lights, but I gotta believe that there's other communities where that have light pollution standards, for example, where they're very conscious about how high the lights are up off the fields and how much of the overflow is into the surrounding areas. So. My feeling is that you know, this in trying to balance the need to maintain the natural areas, and being that it's having that many cars that close to the wildlife areas is concerning to me. I know that there is a concern that the fields being closer to the wildlife area may create more noise and may impact wildlife. But my argument is that, you know, that in terms of density-wise, in terms of the number of vehicles moving, people coming out of cars, I feel like the density of the activity on a smaller geographic area is going to be more dispersed, say, on a field, because they're not going to be constantly coming to the same parking spot, parking there. And so that's kind of where I feel like, I know on option 3, you discussed option 3, and I know that there's competing priorities with regards to trying to mitigate some of that hard surface area that captures that heat. But I feel like trying to move the cars closer to the east side, and trying to keep the less dense activity of the ball field, so that there's some sort of buffer between the wildlife area, because I know that, you know, potentially during the daytime when school's in session, that there may be periods of time when there's not activity, but if you had cars there, people coming to use the park, there's just gonna be that constant, maybe less during the daytime, but more in the evenings. But I'd like us to explore all options to look at how do we maintain that balance and also make sure that we're good neighbors too. Again, it's just I worry that with that many cars, you can't control how loud music gets or how long people will loiter in their cars, but it will happen. And I think that as people are waiting for their athletes to finish their activities, there could be people staying in the area for longer periods of time than we might anticipate. So again, I want us to look at how do we protect that wildlife area. And I know that you had brought up in the discussion that it's cheaper to do the fields on the closest to the east because it's flatter, there's less grading. But I don't want that to be the sole decision why we're putting it there. I'd rather us invest in, you know, mitigating the light with other measures. Maybe there's a way we're able to provide some sort of vertical barrier or something to that might not only block the light but also mitigate some of the noise and also protect that wildlife corridor there. So those are important to me. Again, I think that you know, this area is a prime area to be able to create an opportunity for a community to recreate. But I also want to stress that I think we have also a responsibility to be good neighbors and be good stewards of those natural areas as well. So that's all. What I'm saying is I'd like us to take a look at how we end the parking area. I think it needs to be closer to the east.
Is there a reason other than cost that the parking is located where it is?
That is a driver. And as I said, the grading works best. Our natural way to begin looking at the project is to, you know, make the best decisions with the best budget in mind. The other thing about lighting that's interesting is, you know, the field lighting is getting better all the time. And so the lighting we're proposing for the field is minimizes glare and is very directional to the field surface. Actually, one of the things the parking lot does, you can see there's trees on the plan there. There's a bit of an offset. There's a bit of an offset between the parking and the sensitive lands area. And we agree that the sensitive lands area is a real benefit to the park, and it's what some people really love most about the park, that it has a lot of benefit to it, and we want to respect that and improve that. So one thing that organizing it this way does is it allows you to bring a little bit of tree canopy towards that side of the park and sort of draw that tree canopy into our park a little bit. I started mentioning the lights. If we put the field over towards that white dashed line, which is our sensitive land boundary right here, it brings the light throw that much closer to the sensitive lands in the neighborhood. And that's not as good for wildlife because of the light quality and output we need for a playing surface to make that safe. It can't be the sort of toned down, different temperature light that is better to put next to the sensitive lands. So by having that buffer there, we're able to move that bright light away from the neighbors and away from the wildlife, which improves their habitat. And then we just need minimal parking lot lighting within the parking area. And we have a little more control over the temperature of that light, which is more friendly to wildlife. And as you look at the site from left to right or from west to east, we wanted to get just the right amount of buffer. You can see we've got a really long flat space and then a long parking lot to figure out. And we wanted to provide just the right amount of buffer on every side of those elements so that nothing felt too tight, and to really promote that natural character and that walking ability. If you're coming to walk around the site, you know, it'd be really nice to be able to have a little bit of breathing room on either side of this trail so you're not feeling like you're having to walk down a straight line. So we just wanted to let each of those elements to have the proper amount of buffer between them to enable that.
And if I can just add to that too, we did look at the parking, and we did, Stephen's group and the engineering group did look at some preliminary grading. And what we found, besides the fact that there's a cost factor in it, the cost factor is not just the pavement and the impervious and having to move it and more grading work, but it's also moving the stormwater that's going to be treated before it actually ends up helping Pecan Creek. But I think what Stephen's saying too is that when we looked at that, with the enormous amount of grading, we're moving unnatural grades closer and closer to the edge of that sensitive land. So you're going to have a more stark contrast as to where the field elevation is going to be. Mm-hmm. In this configuration, because it is parking and it's a loop in and loop out parking, we actually have the ability to play with the actual natural grades. So we're not going to be doing a lot of grade disruption there relative to the grade of the creek itself in the sensitive lands. So that's another consideration that we looked at, because when we did push that athletic field, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, we were even talking about the southwest corner down towards Atherton of the field, requiring like a 6-foot retaining wall, so that we could balance the site and move the dirt around on it to have the athletic field. So, and in that case, that's more of an obstruction to the wildlife corridor than having a parking lot at grade with trees in the planters that the wildlife can actually use. And I'll tell you from the Parks Department perspective on, one of our recent projects, Iron Mountain, the parking lot, the amenities that we've put into that wildlife corridor, the animals use it. They use it when cars are there, quite honestly. In that case, what we did is we created something that was on grade and actually moved the stream to enhance that. So I think that we've looked into it. We can continue to look at it, but I think with the trade-off of having to modify the grade enough to get that field pushed over, and then the other negative aspects of adding to the impervious, and on top of that, the cost of not just doing that because we're going to have more paving, but then also the transmission of stormwater that we need to pre-treat before we can move it on. I think the combination of those makes the location of this parking on this side and the fact that we're getting the field further away, I think the trade-offs that this is probably the best good neighbor situation we could do. The others, the trade-offs really get into, those athletic fields, even though they're great, the lights cut off. At this point right now, our nearest light pole is about 350 feet from a private property line, home line right now. If we move that, we'd be moving it to about a 200-foot range. We'd probably be moving it another 150 feet if we moved it to the other side of the parking. And that's a consideration. And we have heard from the neighbors that live adjacent to it that they don't want the lights, but they definitely, if there are lights, they want them as far away from them as possible. So I appreciate your comments, Councilor Nguyen, and I think that we've looked at it quite a bit. We will continue to look at it because now that we're going to be adding the skate park, we'll look at the comprehensive grading plan and we'll talk to the engineers about that and what could be done. But through the process we've gone through, I think that we've come up, for all things considered, that this is the best balanced location and everything. And we've given a lot of thought. And believe me, we've had a lot of neighborhood and neighbor input to it that's actually driven us in directions to make decisions that are good for the neighbors, for the natural area, the sensitive area, and also good for the active sports enthusiasts.
Okay. And are there restrooms?
Yes.
Yes.
Right here is a 4-stall restroom. This is a shelter, and this is the maintenance building. So,
hey, John, here's our chance.
This is it.
Here's our chance to build the restrooms. Right. No, but seriously, kidding aside, no, seriously, that's
on a Saturday.
No, but seriously, kidding aside, I think that's worth something. Considering how much we spent on the restrooms last time, we could build potentially two skate parks. So,
yes.
Yeah. So let's be careful of that.
Okay, thank you for that
I
question.
remember that. I remember those comments.
Okay.
Councilor Wendland, thank you for your patience.
Well, great discussion and great input. I'm going to go a different tact on less input and just a couple questions. I think I've been alongside, I've been going to the meetings and so on, and I'm pretty familiar. I think this footprint is really, and I totally get your concerns, Councilor Wen. They've been through that process, and I know that we have some differing opinions from some of the neighborhood groups on how they'd like to design the process or the park, but in the bigger picture, I think this will serve our city very well. A couple things. One is I just wanted to have it on the record that the artificial turf is actually more environmentally friendly than a grass turf. Is that correct? Would you say?
It's a wash. You gain the number one thing with artificial turf is that there's no chance of us having to use herbicides, pesticides. So you're reducing that. You also reduce the water usage over the life of the turf. The turf infill material that's used today is much different than it was even 10 years ago or 15 years ago, in that it needs to be a certified inert material. So it can't come in with hydrocarbons or anything like that can leach through the field into the drainage. But I will also say that regardless of that, this entire field will have its own pre-treatment facility before we treat it just like an impervious surface. So we pre-treat that before the water moves on, and that's generally through a gravity-fed sand filter. But to say that it is or not, you will create more heat from this. So I think there's trade-offs. Right. I think that basically what you're looking at is equal. The benefit to the community of the artificial turf, it really comes in that it's a usable, safe surface in a multitude of environments. So from a human interaction, it's better.
That was one of my points. Is that I think one of the things that we're concerned about as a city is use of fields, and many of you have brought it up, and I will be an expert witness if you ever want me to be, that we do have a shortage of fields. And just so people realize, during the course of seasons, there's a hierarchy of field use, and the unfortunate thing is that some of our older kids continue to get to use the fields because they are a higher priority than the little kids. And what happens is that the little kids get bumped out of their field space because the older kids have their schedules to go on. And so it's this cascading effect. And if we do want to get kids involved in athletics, we have to give them the chance to actually participate and play. And one of our challenges as a city, when we installed the artificial turf at Waluga, it allowed for a lot of youth teams to increase the time frame so that professional athletes like Messine can go and use it even if it's late at night. But we can use fields more often, and I think that's something that we need in this city. I think it's true. There was a comment that was brought up this evening that that parks can't go into a residential area. And I know that's not true because almost all of our parks are in residential areas. So whatever part that he was referring to, I would like some comment on that if you could.
Well, I'll do is direct that question to Director Siegel. I think that what the question was about whether you could take park access off of a local street. I don't think it was about that they can't go in residential areas. I think it was a question of whether or not our transportation system plan, as enacted into our code, actually allows the park access to come off the residential street as opposed to the major arterial, which is what Stafford is.
Right.
So I'll actually ask either Director Rooney or Director Siegel to give you guys a response to that.
Okay.
I'm sure, based on what I know about the work that the Parks Department has done, that there's been coordination between engineering, planning, and parks about where the access needs to come for this park. So, but you deserve a more thorough description of what the code requires and how it's being complied with here.
Okay. And I will say, for one, I'm not going to put the safety of our kids and citizens at the expense of some discomfort from a side local thing, because a lot of us have parks in our neighborhoods, and we enjoy them. The advantage of having a park in your neighborhood is you get to use it. Sometimes there's not maybe all advantages. Have we done kind of a threat assessment for the next stages? In the sense that, do we have anything that we're worried about that won't pass the reviews? I mean, we've kind of done some initial traffic studies. You've done a number of things on the reports. What do you feel will be a possible, whatever you want to call it, challenge?
I think that we've been really diligent in making sure that we are having those conversations with planning and engineering when we need to comply with what the requirements and regulations are. You know, I don't want to speak for Stephen, but you know, we're at a point where we're preparing to get ready for land use review, and at land use review, generally what we do is we take just like an outside developer would with the traffic impact, with the parking study, with the cultural, we make those available during that. And then really what we've done is we've made our attempt with our consultants to comply with what the code is asking us for, and have made recommendations based on what we've discovered of how we're going to address any of those concerns. On this particular park project, I'm pretty confident that we've done our due diligence and what we put in to land use and the suggestions that we've made on how we're going to mitigate any impacts or you know, the size of our parking. Those things have been addressed. But again, like I said, we give that package to when we do land use, and then it goes to planning and engineering, and they review our work, and they will ultimately come back to us and say, we want you to do this instead of this, or you need to do more here, or we need more information. You didn't provide us with the right information, and we're prepared to do that. And that's part of the contingency we build into our contracts with our consultants.
Right. And then how much of left of the bond is left, roughly? It's about 7,000 or 7,000?
7,000? Yeah, about $62.43.
Right,
43 cents. Your guess, I have that number.
Let's send that back, just like I just said on that. Let's give you a more detailed answer on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not wing it.
And then I just want to say that Jenny, who has been spearheading this project, has done a fabulous job in all the meetings that we've been in. Your staff has done an exceptional job. And my last comment is, I actually really like the skate park, so that in this park, because you've addressed a number of the other concerns with the shelters and the picnic tables and so on for the neighborhoods. There's great pathways, which I know is one of the concerns. And I think we're a little bit fragmented with just pickleballs and one court there. And I think having a skate park, which I fully support because we have zero and we have other assets in the city to have one. And I would like to do it really well and really right. From my perspective, I don't want to compromise this one bit, because if we are Lake Oswego, I think we have a obligation to our citizens to make whatever project we do, to do the very best effort. And I'd like it to be that our kids have the opportunity to do that. And I am in full support of this project, and I think you guys have done a fabulous job. Great public process. I know that there's some concerns from the Palisades Neighborhood Association on traffic and some other things. And both Councilor Mans and I have met with them and attended several meetings. There's just going to probably be some concerns going forward, and I think you have addressed many of them. And I think for all the right reasons, we have come to the conclusion that we've got a great footprint and a great plan put together that is going to serve our citizens very well, including the neighborhood. So, and traffic, I say sooner or later we're just gonna have to dig the moat and put the drawbridge in, and that will be the solution to that. But that's for another day. I know I probably can't say that, but goodbye.
You did. Thank you, Councilor Woodland. Okay, Councilor Mans.
Almost took my mask off. I'm not going to go into the history of skateboarding, but one thing I do want to point out are the number of innovations that have come from skateboarding over the years. And more importantly than that is how it enabled kids who, I think someone pointed out, would not have played team sports for any number of reasons, or maybe they did. So I am 100% behind this. I really appreciate all the work that you put into this. Nothing is perfect, but I think you've gotten it as close to perfect as possible. And who knows, maybe one of our local skateboard riders will create something, I don't know, a hover car. We don't know. So thank you for all that you've done for us and for taking that extra mile. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, thank you both very much for the work, for the presentation, and to all the community members who participated thus far in this engagement process. Thanks to them as well. To Councilor Windland's point, I mean, we've gotten a lot of comments from nearby neighbors, and that's very understandable. I think we'd all be in that same boat. But I appreciate the work that you put into mitigating those concerns, making sure that they don't become realities, the concerns. And I think we've seen in the past that that's always the case. But thank you for keeping open ears and working diligently and cooperatively as this project has moved forward. So you do a good job in the meetings. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll see you again soon. Next, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have two items. One is and these are both for the councilors to vote on. These are appointments I've made to one advisory board and one committee. The first is the appointment of community members to the ad hoc ARPA funding advisory committee. The next is an improvement of an alternate to the Development Review Commission. We had a member, Jason Frankel, who stepped down, and I'm proposing we appoint Dwight Sangray to replace him. I thank Mr. Frankel for his service and Mr. Sangray for his willingness to serve. And thanking those on the, including Councilor Mans and Councilor Mbupu, who will serve as our liaisons to the ARPA Advisory Committee, and then the wide variety of other community members who have volunteered to serve on the temporary committee. So those are the two resolutions.
So move to accept and adopt the consent agenda, please.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay. Councilors, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Now we have information from council. Does anyone have any information? Okay, well, I have information. You don't have to have information.
Skateboard, you want to hear about skateboards? No, I'm kidding. That was a joke, guys, come on.
Just a reminder that tomorrow we have the community policing wrap-up event. That's a virtual event, and we will all be there. Also to report that the Youth Leadership Council, it had a kind of summer hiatus, and we have revamped that program for this year. This past weekend, we had it had its first gathering in the form of a retreat on Saturday that Councilor Mbupu and I attended. I'd like to just thank Charity Taylor and Jamie Inglis, are now the two staff folks working on the Youth Leadership Council. They're doing a great job with this reformat agenda, and we have a great group of youth students moving forward, and we're looking forward to working with them. And coming up in the winter, we have our annual review of charter officers, city manager, city attorney, and the judge. We have some forms that Ms. Phelan is going to send out to everyone. They're kind of evaluation forms that haven't been updated in decades. So I thought, well, why don't we all take a chance just to go through and also for charter officers to look at them and to say, oh, are these, I mean, they're pretty general, but they are rather old. So take a look, and then we'll have a chance to provide that feedback, coalesce it, and Ms. Phelan will lay out the process there, but the first step would just be going through those evaluation forms themselves. Okay, Ms. Bennett.
I have two things. One, I know that Carrie reached out to all of you in the last 24 hours, but I just want you to all remember that we're moving council goal setting from January 8th to January 22nd. So generally speaking, that runs from 8:30-ish in the morning to 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So if you could just make sure you hold that on your calendars, I'd appreciate it. I think Carrie also sent you a request about whether we could do a portion of the session, maybe a couple hours worth on the Friday afternoon beforehand. I think you all know that last year we skipped over the sort of the big picture visioning part of the conversation, partially because we were on Zoom. And so I think it might help us if we did the sort of the council agreements and how are all you working together on Friday, so that we could deep dive into the substance on Saturday morning. So if you are open to that, I'd appreciate that means you'd also have to hold a couple hours on the Friday afternoon of the 21st. So I guess what I would ask is if anybody's not open to that, if you could let Carrie, I'm not going to ask you to out yourself in public. If you could just let Carrie know, I'd appreciate that very much. And then the other thing I wanted to make sure you all know is the community survey is really close to ready to go. I know you talked with Madison about that in the summertime, but it's really an opportunity for us to find out about how satisfied the people of Lake Oswego are with the city with the community in general, with city services in particular, and then to ask some high priority policy questions. I believe the 3 policy questions we ended up asking about, one is sort of about COVID and just how is the response to COVID been for folks. The second one is about transportation funding options for pathways. And the third one is about emergency preparedness, generally speaking. But the results of that will come in later this fall, so they'll be available for you to look at before we go to council goal setting. So there we are. I think that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. And Councilor Verdict.
I just want to say we had Sustainability Advisory Board last night, and that was the first time since I believe June, because we have our new Sustainability Advisory manager, Amanda Watson, and so it was just great to reconnect with each other again. It's such an active group of individuals, and they're so engaged, and they all have their specialties within sustainability, so just getting back together was really exciting, and they're really looking forward to having some direction from Amanda and us and just serving the community the best they can. So I just wanted to kind of do a public shout out to Amanda, and that we really are excited to have her on board.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to adjourn the city council meeting and call to order the redevelopment agency meeting. We have one item of board business, and that is to approve an increase to the construction contract guaranteed maximum price. Welcome, Sidaro Sen, the redevelopment manager.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Buck and members of the board. I'm Sidaro Sen, redevelopment manager. To my right is Aaron Braun, senior project manager with Howard S. Wright, who's been our general contractors. The board is being asked to approve the hopefully final and anticipated guaranteed maximum price, and it's about $500,000. This would increase the total GMP for the project to about $37.465 million, and that is still under the board-approved 43.5 overall. And we have about $95,000 that's still unencumbered. Certainly the project was substantially completed in September. We're still working through a few things with the contractor, button up punch list items and other things that we need to fix. However, we hope to finish that shortly. So with that, I'd recommend the board approve the GMP increase, and Aaron and I are available for any questions you may have.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to authorize the LORA Executive Director to amend the existing contract.
Second.
Second, oh, please.
Any discussion? Questions? All right, all those in favor?
Hey, I think we need to give great appreciation to Sid for coming in on budget, so I think
Under
that
budget.
would be, under budget, actually, so.
Thank you. Thank you, and I've really appreciated the board's support
Sid.
last 2.5, 3, 4 years. And also wanted to say that Howard S. Wright has been a great partner in this project as well, so.
Thank you for saying that.
Good
And
work.
this is a great building.
Yeah.
It is an awesome building, sure.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. All right, thank you both very much. And with that, this meeting of the Redevelopment Agency is adjourned. Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
That is it.